Well, hello there! bysTaxX here, and I'm bringing you something a little bit new. I'm going to be running a campaign on Mondays, because that is the only day that I have guaranteed off, which is something that's a little, I don't know. Anywho, so, yeah, I'll be running a campaign. Tabletop game, right? So, the things that I want to do in this video is to get you into the world. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to record audio from the game itself. If I can't, then after each session I'll come back and do a wrap-up, a summary of the events that happened in that session. And I'll post them here on YouTube. So, another thing is that if I am going to be using the audio, then you'll have to realize that I'm doing a homebrew system with house rules. I'll be using things that I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to put in the actual rule set. Yeah. Yeah. So the intro to the actual world itself is as follows. It is currently the year 1253, post-cataclysm. The world has already been destroyed and been rebuilt. During the cataclysm, a virus ravaged through the entire world, completely unseen. And it turned beasts into men and men into beasts. It also gave plants interesting properties. Over half of the population of the entire planet died through the hazards of metamorphosis. And the world's government needed to set aside their differences and band together in order to survive. However, the virus was not the only thing that the inhabitants of the world needed to worry about. The planet itself got sick, and it started showing some interesting symptoms. The dense, overpopulated, crowded cities of the world started to flood. Huge storm clouds sat on the ground as if it was storm fog. Water would beat up and run down the sides of buildings, flooding everything in sight. The world's government decided to construct walls around these areas to try and contain the damage. Massive, 1,000-foot walls, and populated by this combined military force that constructed the walls, live in the walls, maintain the walls, and breed in the walls. Deserts became electrified. Electricity coursing through the ground in immaculate light shows, turning the ground into glass and arcing from the ground into the atmosphere, bringing with it vaporized heavy metals and silica, filling the atmosphere with ozone. Many people just wouldn't leave. It's their home. This is where they live. This is where they grew up. This is what they are. And they soon realized that inhaling all these things is not very good for the brain or for the lungs. But again, walls are constructed around these glassine plains in order to keep people out and to try and maintain the damage. Seedy corporations and organized criminals flocked to these areas. Free resources, free electricity, no government. It was like putting kids in a candy store. They quickly realized that the surface is not a good place to be, so they constructed and dug these massive, sprawling underground complexes. Cities underground, where they jockey for position. Farms and mountains detached and were very uplifted, floating in the sky. These skylands just scatter the world in these silently floating islands. People soon realized that they really don't know how to progress technology, so they just use clockwork power to power everything. Soon, the unafflicted areas started to realize that plants can now move, and they started to encroach on the last untouched areas of the world. So a new order started to sprout up, the Templar Order, whose goal is to unify the whole world. And they gathered enough resources, manpower, to construct monolithic superstructures that would fly over the dangerous areas of the ground. These air cities, powered by biodiesel, grown on the platforms themselves. Industry is built on top, and the city itself is hanging underneath in an inverted skyline. 1,000 years after the cataclysm, magic explosively entered the world, tearing the very vestiges of reality asunder. And humans were brought back, along with elves and orcs, halflings, gnomes, and dwarves, giants, Goliaths, trolls, and golems. Even the Fae were brought in. Fairies, pixies, nymphs, dryads, Kate Sith, and of course, here there be dragons. Quickly, the Templar Order realized that magic is very dangerous and chaotic, and dubbed it largely illegal in the air cities. And soon, very quickly, did tensions start to rise between the Templars and the dragons. Templars viewing the dragons as these massive, dangerous, chaotic creatures, and the dragons as trying to live. Granted, dragons did attack a lot of people, and then Templars attacked a lot of dragons. Tensions rose quickly, but not too quickly. The dragons decided that in order to survive, or in order to do whatever it is that they're doing, they created new races. They took people, more or less, and they created dragoons and drakes to help them in their plight, in their own fights. The tensions between the dragons and the Templars reached a fever pitch about 500 years ago. No, 50 years ago. And an all-out war broke loose for about 3 months. Many air cities were brought down, many dragons were killed, and it was very apparent that this was going to be a war of mutual destruction. An uneasy ceasefire was put forth, quelling the chaos. Many dragoons and drakes and just other people were misplaced, or displaced. And a few air cities decided that they would take these refugees in. One of which is Cantaroon, a bustling trade city floating effortlessly in the winds amongst the clouds. And in this city, the Templars aren't very prominent. Not nearly as much as Calabaster, what would be the capital city, or Armada Santi, a giant flying fortress. But in Cantaroon, anyone can be pretty much anything. here in one of the less than desirable parts of town. Next to a run-down, falling apart bar, across the street from a strip club, and around the corner from a pet store. And not the kind of pet store where you go in to buy your cute, fluffy little Pomeranian that lives in your purse. This is a place where you buy your cute, fluffy little Pomeranian that walks on 2 legs. But in this neighborhood, there's a small group of private investigators. And little do they know, they are about to be thrusted upon into the heart of the world of fashion. So that's the introduction to the actual world itself. And that's what I'm going to be telling the players, just to get them back into, just to get them into the world. A few of the major people in the fashion industry. There is Mallory Mozetz, aka Madame Mozette. She is a 97-year-old Black Panther who is still on everyone's to-do list. She has 2 daughters, Luna and Sasha. Luna is 50 years old, Sasha is 72. And Sasha has a daughter. No, I think it's Luna who has a daughter. I have notes. But apparently I didn't figure out who has Ashley. So Ashley is 25 years old, and I'm gonna make a judgment call and say that it is Luna who had Sasha. I think. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Makes way more sense. Okay. That was a little bit disturbing to me. So, yes, there's that. There is the up-and-comer, Madame Nicole. I really should give her a damn name. First name. Later. I got, 3 days to figure that out. So, yeah, there's Madame Nicole, who's an up-and-comer. She's like 37. Yeah. She's 32? I know, so professional. So great. Don't even know my own fucking lore. It'd be nice if I wrote down the fucking ages. God damn it. I'm just gonna make a judgment call and say that she's 32. I like 32. She's 32 years old, and she's an up-and-comer. She's starting to just explode like wildfire across the fashion industry. Then there is Mr. Bonsoir, who I really don't have an age for him, but he is, another famous... what race is Nicole? Nicole is a white wolf, actually. Bonsoir is... I don't have a race for him. I could probably figure that out pretty quickly, actually. Randomly generated, haha! Actually, I want Bonsoir to be an elf. And he is all over Mozette's nuts. Yeah. He's been around in the industry for a while. I'm going to say that he's like in his 50s-ish, I would say. So, yeah. That is pretty much the introduction to the story. I don't really know who the characters are going to be yet. I know that one of the players wants to run a male dark elf. Oh, and the natives, the furries. They have 10 genders. 10 genders. Because it's based off of a pairing of 4 different chromosomes that give you what you are. Yeah, I had to make a Punnett square for it, and it was a bloody nightmare. But basically, it's just pick what's upstairs, pick what's downstairs, and there's a gender for that, and then 2 more. Including, like, neuter. It's weird. But, as I was saying, all of these, you know, characters are in this world. Oh, anyway, so one of the players wants to run a dark elf male. Not really sure what else about it. That's pretty much all that I know. Another character wants to run a Kate Sith, who is chaotic crazy. I'm very much likely going to change that. Doesn't really fit in the theme of a noir investigation opening adventure. And the opening adventure is going to be a missing persons adventure. So, there's that. And what else? And I really don't know what the other two players are going to pick. Also, kobolds are a playable race. Yeah, there's a lot of playable races. There's like 23, and one of them is the natives, and that means pick an animal, basically. I'm also generating a rollable table for all of that, but it's kind of a pain in the neck because I have to convert a D20 into a D7, which I have actually done. But, you know, there's that. But, you know, it is what it is. It is, you know, it is what it is. It's actually not that hard. I've discovered it's just mathy bullcrap that you need to do in order to do it. So, and technically you can simulate any arbitrary probability with like a d20 or even a flip of a coin. Actually, you can do it. Just it takes a lot more work. Yeah, you have to convert a fraction into the decimal expansion in base 2 or base 20 or base 12 or yeah, it's kind of a royal pain in the ass. Well, that's beside the point. So yes, this opening adventure is an adventure I've run twice already, and so far the players, at least like half the players, like I think like 2 or 3 of the players, maybe all of them, have actually input a little bit into the world itself. They've literally changed some of the world. One of the players brought up the fact that if electricity is coursing through the ground, wouldn't the surface be made of glass? Just this sheet of glass. And I was like, yeah, that's totally what would happen. That makes sense. And like a few other things that some of the other players touched on that I already have like in place in the world. Which I'm super hyped about that because they're already thinking about like some of the things that are going on behind the scenes, or they're already thinking about the possible things that could be happening behind the scenes of the world that their characters are going to be in and investigating and good God. I know, so professional. I have like a massive frog in my throat. Huge frog. It's just croaking its way out. So, there's that. And I have one very veteran player who's familiar with many different role-playing systems, which I'm really happy about. So she will be able to really get into character and make a good, strong character. Then I have another character who has really only played war games like Warhammer, but he's kind of interested in how things, he's interested in the genre. So I'm really happy to have him on board, and we share a name. Come on. I just had to have him on board. Did kind of twist his arm a little bit, but it seems like it's going to work out really well. He is interested in the whole narrative aspect of things rather than just number crunching and dice rolling, which can be fun, but narration is way more interesting, personally. In my humble opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of players out there that love Warhammer because you roll dice, crunch numbers, and see what happens. And it's engaging to them, and good on you. There's D&D players who play it for the numbers, and there's no problem with that. That's perfectly okay. You're just playing a different game than I'm running. You're just playing a different game than I am. And that's perfectly fine. I also have two other players who have a hard time keeping up a steady campaign, apparently, because people just don't show up for game day, and it's kind of like, what do we do now? And they're the ones who are thinking about what could be happening behind the scenes a lot more, which, again, I'm really hyped about. Because they've already started thinking about some things that I've thought about and am thinking about. They've already touched on some really cool stuff. And yeah, so there's those things. There's actually, I think that's about it for the introduction to the actual setting itself. The next video that I'm going to record will be an introduction to the system itself for anyone else out there who is kind of interested in the system itself. And I'll be throwing in some cool mathy bits at the end to convert. I'm going to start off with the actual system itself, a breakdown of the system, breakdown of the character sheet, and then I'll go into the how to turn a D20 into a D anything at the very end, because it's some kind of esoteric mathy bullcrap. That's kind of, but it's useful. Yeah. So, with that all being said, I'm going to say ciao.